it's important that we show an interest in them after the transaction and continue with that. Because if you continue with that, they will send you repeat and referral. If you don't, there's somebody else's new client.
Welcome back to In the House podcast. I'm Toni Singh.
And I'm Jenny Woon.
And we have a really special guest joining us from the United States today, Miss Cyndey Fullen from Watson Powers Coaching. Hi, Cyndey.
Hey, guys. Hey, ladies. How are you?
We're good. How about
good.
you?
I'm doing well, We're in a heat wave right now, so it's a fun summertime.
Oh, my gosh. Tell the audience where specifically you're filming from today.
I'm actually talking to you from Little Rock, Arkansas. And a lot of people don't know where that is. We're in the southern part of the U.S., and we're right by Texas, kind of in that area. And that's where I live now. I sell real estate, and I also have my own team, and I coach. So here we are down in the South. Can you hear my southern drawl?
Yeah, for sure.
A little.
No, a lot. But for those of you that are just meeting Cyndey for the first time, Cyndey was actually my real estate coach way back in the day when I first got started. I think I was 6 months into the business. And she whipped me into shape real quick. It was not always easy. And we have her on the podcast today because we'd really like to have a raw conversation about real estate in general and what it takes to succeed in the industry. So this is going to be the unfiltered version. I think that we can just speak from the heart and go all out here. And Jenny is going to kick us off with the first question.
Yes. Well,
riveting.
Well, this is a question that agents have been asking me during this time, simply for the fact that the market has really shifted in Vancouver, and they're looking for the most effective prospecting ways to be able to generate more leads. And I believe that, the top producers, they're not having any issues. They have really good systems in place. They're nurturing their leads. But the ones that are just coming into the business, what are some of the most effective prospecting techniques that you would be recommending right now?
I was thinking about the market this morning as I was preparing for this call. I think that it's a very difficult market for anyone in the business today. Not difficult in that it can't be done, but it is more challenging because, there's a lot of people that aren't selling their homes, and those people that do want to sell their homes, a lot of times it's overpriced. It's difficult to find good leads today. So the agents that are willing to work, like the top producers, they're doing just fine. They are still making a good living. It is a hard period of time to get into the business as a new agent, for sure. And you have to be willing to prospect. So prospecting can take on a lot of different shapes and forms. I'm coaching one person that's a social prospector. And what that is that's someone that can walk into a room and just get business from talking to people. And that's a perfectly acceptable way to do it. But for most, they're going to have to do things, Jenny, like door knock. They're going to have to work their database and get out of their comfort zone and talk to people, because in the end, that's what prospecting is. We just have to talk to people. Everybody wants to talk about real estate. The challenge that you have with the new people is they're not comfortable with that, and they don't have the skills to walk into a room and create business or go up to that door. So, the key here is you got to work, and you have to learn how to talk to people if you want to make it in this business.
Okay. And the social anxiety, it's just top of mind right now. That's what came up to me, is the social anxiety of walking into a room, I'm being judged. I don't know what to say. I may sound stupid. So when what you're saying is brushing up on their skills, what are some ways that they can brush up their skills?
So Well, sometimes it's just a matter of doing it and pushing through that. So making yourself get out of your comfort zone, right? But as far as what to say, it's been my experience that everyone wants to talk about real estate. Do you guys get that too? Like
All
wherever
the
you go,
time.
if someone finds out you're in the business, guys, what do they ask you? What's the first thing
How's
that
the
comes out of their
market?
mouth?
How's the
How's the
market?
market? So Jenny, the first skill, they need to know how to answer that question.
Good
You
tip.
know, what are the statistics, right? What's happening in the market? And how do you present it in a positive way where you're not walking around gloom and doom? You're like, oh my God, the market's so challenging. Market's great. Are houses selling in Vancouver? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they have to learn how to answer that question. Um, Good little tip. If you walk into a room and you say to someone, hi, Jenny, I'm Cyndey Fullen. It's so nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? They're going to tell you, and what's the next thing they're going to say? What do you do? I'm in real estate. How's the market? Be able to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share a funny story with you guys. How things have changed over the years as far as the prospecting. I mean, you're going to think this is a crazy story, but years ago when I got into the real estate business, we had a lot of new construction, and in the city that I lived in, and I mean, whole subdivisions of new houses being built. And on the weekends, people would drive through those neighborhoods, right, and look and stop and look at the properties. I would literally go and like just troll those neighborhoods. And when someone would pull up to a house, I'd pull my car up and I would jump out and go knock on their window and say, hi, I'm a real estate agent. Would you like to look at this house?
So I knew you were going to say that before you said it, because that's something that I would do. The
It's
craziest thing,
100%.
the craziest thing for prospecting that I have done is, it's really difficult now to find, like, unless it's single family detached and they have a house line, you can't actually call them, which is why door knocking is so effective. But there was this one strata building. It had been rezoned for higher development. No telephone numbers. So I was outside of the building. I buzzed every unit. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. And I know you people are, some people listening to this are probably judging me, but I got leads from it. So I think you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to get rejected. Yeah, maybe some people are going to yell. And what is the overall goal? Like Cyndey, so many times when you were coaching me and I was new, I had been rejected so many times. It was actually heartbreaking because like if I would have stopped, then I wouldn't have been a realtor. I wouldn't have been able to be a top producer now. And so there were many days where I wanted to cry. There was that one time where I couldn't get out of my car. I was so defeated. I just couldn't. I couldn't open the door. And so sometimes it's best to take a little break, mindset break, and then go back to it the next day. But yeah, these things, as long as you guys can get out of your comfort zone, you can be highly profitable.
Well, let me ask you this question. So what changed for you? Because you struggled with prospecting in the beginning because of the rejection, which by the way, that's totally normal. There's very few people that love to pick up a phone and talk to people that they don't know or go knock on that door. But for Toni, what happened for you that made you change and become so comfortable with it?
So I had a lot of practice because I was rejected thousands of times before, I mean, not 1,000 times back to back, but you get rejected a lot. Then you have the tough skin because it really doesn't matter if someone's going to reject you. You just keep going because for every 100 that reject you, you'll get two that want to list or buy something from you. And so for me, failure was not an option, even though there were days where I felt defeated. And then my skill level increased. So I can pick up the phone now or be in a room now and I can get business pretty quickly. But it's because there's a skill level as well that people don't realize when they're first learning how to do it. And there are so many things that go into sales, right? Like NLP, the way that your body language is, the tonation of your voice and the flex. So you can't just, if someone says, how's the market? You can't just answer it with stats. That's part of it. And it's the way that you present it. But speaking of prospecting, let's talk about time management overall, Cyndey, because you coach a lot of agents across North America. How can real estate agents manage their time effectively to balance lead gen, client meetings, and personal life?
So The most defining characteristic of the top producer is their ability to manage their schedule.
Mm.
That's why they do more business than anyone else, because they're just better at that than other people. We all have the same amount of time in the day, but how you choose to use your time, that's what makes the huge difference, right? Um, I'll give you a soft answer, and I'll give you a really hardcore answer. Hardcore answer first is being good at time management is a choice.
Mm.
It simply is a matter of having the discipline and saying, I'm going to do this at a certain time, and I'm accountable to myself and to the goals that I've set, and that's why I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardcore answer. If they were in a corporate job and they had to do XYZ every day at a specific time, guess what? They would do it. The problem in our business is that we're all independent contractors. There's no real accountability. There's no such, honestly, there's no such thing as accountability. If you really get down to it, can I hold you accountable or anyone? Not really. It has to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to make a decision as an agent that I'm going to be good at time management, that this is important for the future of my business. And once you accept that and you follow the schedule, it shouldn't be a problem. Now, having said all that, balance, you get balance because of your time management. That's what creates the balance. If you are like unproductive all day long, you feel guilty in the evening about not answering that call because you weren't as productive. I mean, if we were to be 100% honest, that's why we're slaves to this phone, because we don't think that we are where we need to be. So we answer the phone at dinner or on the weekends, et cetera. But if I've had a great week and I've prospected and followed my schedule and done some deals, I don't feel that guilt when I'm with my family. So having good time management actually creates the life that you say that you want, and it creates the money that you say that you want too. So to me, it's just the foundation. I can give you a million examples. You guys have kids, right?
I do.
She does.
You do? Okay. Toni, how old are your children?
9 and 3.
Okay. So the 9-year-old goes to school at what time?
9:00.
Okay, is she like late most of the time, or do
Nope.
you get her there on time most of the time?
So our oldest is a boy. Antonio is at school on time because there's a schedule, right? The school starts at 9, so we're there 15 minutes early.
Okay. And you wouldn't dream of not having him there just because, that day you got distracted.
No. No,
So
but
so
it's
that's
funny you say that example because realtors are a lot like that, right? It's like, I got distracted. Now I'm like 10 minutes late for every appointment. I've done it
So
before too.
Sophie, it's all about the priorities, right? It's like when you're taking your son to school, that is a priority. So you make that happen. But yet we can't be at the office at 9:15 because I got distracted. Or I was just running late. Oh, the morning just got away from me. See, it's all decisions. We make decisions every day. So time management's a decision.
And then how would you suggest if someone, okay, so let's say you've committed to the schedule that you're setting out for yourself that's going to work. The schedule and your time management facilitates what you want to see in your personal life. So maybe you've got kids. Maybe you want to spend 2 hours with them in the evening. And then you're servicing your business during the day. How does one actually go about creating an efficient schedule for that? Like, are they looking towards their priorities first and then time blocking it?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of coaches, a lot of trainers that will say, "Oh, you need to be at the office at 7:30, and you need to be on that phone at 9:00." And while that would be the perfect schedule, that doesn't fit for most people. So if I'm coaching someone that has children or they've got other responsibilities, the first thing we do is look at what are those other responsibilities, that we're going to plug that into the schedule. And then put any other non-movable things like a coaching session or a sales meeting, whatever. And then we build the schedule around their life. If you can't be at the office until 10 because you have other responsibilities, great. Let's start your prospecting at 10. If you can't do it until 1, let's do it then. It should be tailor-made to you. If it is, you'll do it, and then you won't get resentful. Because if you set up a schedule that it doesn't work for you, all you're going to do is get resentful and then say, that's never going to work. make it where it works for you. When my kids were little, I was doing a little over 100 transactions a year and listing about 10 houses a month. So that's a lot of
She's an
listing
OG.
appointments.
She's an OG.
Yeah, I walk the talk. That's for sure. It's not something. I mean, I live the life even today. I'm in production today, so I get it. But when my kids were little, I felt so guilty. It had that mom guilt all the time, and so finally, I made a deal with them. I said, "Look, I won't work on Saturdays and Sundays if you guys will give me 2 evenings a week guilt free."
Mhm.
Or I'll be home every night with dinner and I won't go on, I won't do anything, but I have to have Saturdays to meet with people that I couldn't meet with during the week. So that was a decision we made as a family. So I took listing appointments on Tuesday and Thursday nights, but I didn't work on Saturday and Sunday. And were Tuesday and Thursdays heavy days? Yeah, I would have a listing appointment at 3 and then one at 5 and one at 7. And, I'm not walking in the door until 8:30, 9 o'clock, but that's what worked for my family. And so you have to just do like a self-assessment and be honest with yourself about what you're really going to do and then follow that plan.
Cyndey, a question
And
about that. How old were your kids when you made that agreement? Because one of the challenges I have with
like 5 and 7.
Okay, yeah.
Was
Because with our
yeah.
3-year-old, I tried to do that with her.
Mhm.
She's like, no,
Good
I
luck.
want you here all the time. No work, no work. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think she needs to be a little bit older. Maybe next year we'll try and revisit it. She doesn't understand.
You revisit it, and we have such funny stories about raising my kids in the business. And my daughter is
Becca.
Becca. Becca. She's my business partner, and she is she runs the back office side of the business. So years ago, when she got out of college, I said, "Hey, why don't you get into the real estate business? I think you'd be great at it." She goes, "Mom, I've been in the real estate business my whole life. I am not doing that," which is true because I had her while I was in the business. So, but she got into the business and she's been doing it now for 15 years. And, and it's great. I mean, the name of our little team is called the Legacy Team.
Mhm.
And it's because she's a real estate legacy. You're a real estate legacy too.
I guess now I've been in it for a while. Jenny's been in it for longer than me.
And you come from real estate stock too.
True. And so that's why, much like Becca, when my dad said I should get into real estate, I said, hell no. I fought against it for so long. And then eventually when I did, I'm like, wow, I'm really good at this. Eventually, I was like, not bad at it.
Well, I think that you have to really appreciate what this business can provide for all of us as professionals. Over the years, I've heard a lot of complaining about, oh my gosh, the people and the rejection, and there's something else I can do. This isn't the business for everyone, but see, I'm the opposite. I love this, and I'm so grateful every day that I get to get up and do this because your income is unlimited. It's completely up to you. And I'll go back to what I said before. All you have to do is talk to people. If you just talk to people all day long, you're going to do fine. So
That's
I love
a simple way of putting it.
Well,
talk to people.
Exactly. Talking to people and negotiating, even with your kids, is practice, practice, practice. And
That's right.
right, you're negotiating with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old.
She wins sometimes though too.
Well, that's just
Which means
like
that you got to
buyer or
brush up on your
seller,
skills. I'm
Sometimes
always
that's just like talking to a buyer or seller. They're just sometimes they are as mature as your 2 or 3-year-old.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have to have those good people skills, and that comes with practice, and it also comes with not being emotionally attached to the outcome. Jenny, you asked me about that anxiety that people have when they're prospecting, but even when they're negotiating. I'm negotiating a deal right now. The agent's so emotional. Every little thing that happens, this agent gets super. I mean, I can feel it, and I believe to be good at this job, you've got to. They're not paying us to be emotional. The clients are paying us to be that. like that solid foundation for them. As they're freaking out or they've got the stress, we need to be that, steady as she goes. So to your point, Jenny, the anxiety, the emotions that the agents feel, it just takes time and experience and lots of practice to get past that where it's not an issue for them anymore.
Let's talk about practicing, because I've
Mhm.
often talked to my agents that it just takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of, I guess, maneuvering like different scenarios. And without practicing, you
Mhm.
don't really know what's going to come at you. So going
Mhm.
around the dinner table and practicing with maybe your family, practicing in front of the mirror, practicing with your colleagues at the office. What are some scripts that you would recommend that an agent should pick up right away and just start like lip reading some of this information?
Okay, good. So if they're brand new to prospecting, when I'm working with someone that's never done this before, I like to start with the warmer scripts, which are going to be like a just listed or a just sold script, something that they can do where they can door knock it. And if they have numbers, they can call, but I know that's really difficult in Canada. If they're in the States, you can purchase lists where you can, of course, cold call. But just listed, just sold scripts that are question based, that are really designed to get the prospective client talking. So I would start there. The next script would be how to talk to your center of influence, people that your friends and family about real estate, and to ask for referrals. I would teach them a very basic listing presentation script
Mhm.
and a basic buyer presentation script. And so those are that's where I would begin. And then once they get a little bit more experience with this, then you're going to add on the different objection handlers that they're going to get when they're prospecting or when they're making a presentation. Uh, to your point, Jenny, there's many ways to practice. Role play is probably the best.
Mhm.
It's to role play with someone. You get the script, you read it verbatim, and the idea is that we're kind of imprinting it on their DNA and that real estate DNA and in their subconscious, right? Uh, I'm a driver. I hate to role play. Don't tell anyone, but I hate to role play.
Me
And the reason
too.
is because I don't like to wait. I don't like to wait for other people, right? Somebody doesn't show up, it makes me mad. Or they show up late, or they want to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" I don't like that stuff. So for me, the easier way was to handwrite the scripts over and over and over again, or to chant the scripts where you stand up and you just read them over and over and over and over and over and over again. You do it for like 30 minutes. And I promise you, if you chant those scripts every day for 30 minutes, within 2 weeks, you'll have them memorized. And that's the goal. The best prospectors take those scripts, and once they've memorized them, they're internalized and the scripts become their own. And you can personalize them then. And so what I say to my coaching clients is the scripts are the framework of a great real estate conversation.
Mm.
You can ask questions between the questions. You can ask for additional information. You can make a little joke. There's lots of ways that you can personalize it, but you have to start with memorizing and internalizing those questions exactly as they're written. And if you're diligent, it doesn't take that long to get it. But we're just as adults, we're not used to that. When you're a
So,
kid, you're playing the piano and you do that, you memorize over and over and over again, but doesn't come natural to us as an adult.
so, Cyndey, would you say that when you're coaching your clients and you're getting them ready to practice the scripts, then they're role playing, and then they're finally going out there, um, in the real world, practicing with potential real estate clients?
Hmm.
What would you say? Because there's a story behind what I'm going to say too. What would you say is the most common progression for something like that? Like, I went door knocking with my team member Anoop. We've been practicing
Hmm.
together. And it was really interesting because the first ones that she door knocked, they essentially just wanted to close the door in her face. She might be listening to this one, and that's fine. But then she said to me, "I'm going to go with you for a bit." So I was going. And it's very common that you can get a seller that's They don't want to talk to you. They want to close the door in your face. But if you can diffuse the situation using the questions with the right intonation and then making a joke, I've had those people hire me before. And then Anoop said to me, how come they respond so much better to you? A, I'm not attached to the situation. B, I already know the script. So I know to look for motivation and ask the right questions. I don't need to focus on the actual script itself. So I can only focus on the motivation to see if this is something that we're going to take on. So essentially what you're, and I think that comes with a shit ton of practice. So yeah.
And a shit ton of doing it live with a real person and seeing how people are responding to you and maybe trying it a different way. The best prospectors, when they say the scripts, they don't sound like a script. They sound like they're talking to their best friend. It sounds like a conversation. So that only comes with doing it a shit ton of times, right? That's just
good because as agents are listening to this, one common objection from using the scripts is that they sound robotic. They only sound robotic if they haven't internalized the scripts and they're not sure what questions to ask to get to the end goal. So just if you guys are practicing scripts, just keep this in mind. Keep practicing. Keep practicing.
I have my clients send me recordings of their calls.
So
and or their listing presentations. So that this just happened this past week. This is a great agent, and he lists 5 houses a month. And he's been doing this particular listing presentation for a very long time. And it is a presentation that many of us know, that we've all done the same presentation. But his conversion rate is like 30%. And he's still taking 5 listings a month.
Wow.
So I said, I never want to hear that script ever again. I said, what do you mean?
30% is not a great conversion.
I said, as I'm listening to you, I said, listen to your recording. When you're asking these questions, you sound like a robot. But then when you are like jiving with them a little bit, you're so relaxed, you're so likable, you're so personable. I said, let's just take the script out of it. Let's break this down into 3 parts. Let's ask some questions in the beginning. Let's do the CMA presentation and then handle their objections and get them to sign it. I said, don't use any of the script. So you know what happens? Now his rates already, this is like 2 weeks ago, he's already up to like 60% just because it's not so rigid. And so the scripts are that great foundation. Everybody needs to learn them, but they have to become you. And once they become you, then people will be drawn to you. But if you're just like a telemarketer, no.
I have a question about objections in a second, but I have to say, I remember the first time you made me record my listing presentation when I was new, and you made me record as well how I sounded on the phone when I was prospecting. It was fucking terrible to watch. It was the worst. I was so uncomfortable. It was the worst. And it was also the most important thing because even for me, I realized how I sounded. And that's why I was not getting the business. I mean, I wouldn't have hired me. It was just terrible. So yeah, highly recommend that you do it with a glass of wine.
It's almost the same when we started, Cyndey, we started sounding very robotic. I was reading word for word all my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Toni was like, this is making me more nervous. So
we're different personality styles.
Totally different.
Yeah, we're just driving now. But an important thing coming out of the scripts, obviously. So let's say the agents are practicing their scripts. They're getting the business. They're at least getting the listing appointment. Okay. What are the most common objections that agents face from potential clients and how can they overcome them?
I think the objections are all the same, right? The objections are, I want a higher price. I want a lower commission. I'm not quite sure. I want to talk to other agents, blah, blah, blah. Here's the problem with most agents is once they get an objection, they don't know what to do with it. It doesn't even matter what the objection is. They shut down. And then when the people say, hey, I want to think about it, they're like, oh, okay. And they close their folder and they run, right? Because they don't, it's not so much that they don't know what to say. The tension that is built up in that situation is uncomfortable. And if you've listed a lot of property, we all know what that feels like. You've asked for the signature and they say no, or they don't ever say no, actually. They say, let me think about it. And so we're so uncomfortable. We're trying to relieve that tension, so we just leave. Can you guys relate to that feeling?
Yeah.
So what I coach on is when you hear that, hey, I want to think it over, or let me talk to my spouse. That's really not an objection. That's just a smoke screen that they're giving you to get you to back off, quite honestly. That's their form of relieving the tension because it's uncomfortable for them too. So what I coach on is when you hear that, just sit back and just say to them, hey, you know what? It's a big decision. And you've got to think, you really need to think about this carefully because it's important for your family. When you relieve the tension that way, you can actually feel it leave the room. If they're just like, oh my God, they're not going to do a hard close. And then ask them for more details. So Toni, tell me exactly what you need to think about. Do you have any questions about the price? Are we in agreement on the price? What about your net? What about what we're going to do to get the property sold? What about the transition itself? I mean, you got to dig in and find out what's stopping them from signing. And once you do that, then handling the objection is just solving a problem. I'm not comfortable with the price. Well, great. Let's look at it again and see where we're at. And because maybe I didn't, from as an agent perspective, maybe I didn't explain it properly. Maybe they don't understand it. We got to go in deeper. So it's, having an objection handler is good, but it's getting past that smoke screen that's even more important. I'll also say this. Good agents, really great ones, they hardly ever even get the smoke screen. They hardly get objections. And the reason is because they spent the time at the beginning understanding the true motivation of the client. Because if I understand what my client's really trying to accomplish, I'm giving them that. And then listing is easy. You're getting them to buy. It's the same process. It's easy. You just have to understand what are they trying to accomplish. What personality style are they? So you understand a little bit more about their decision-making process. How can I help them in their mind make this a smooth transition versus going in and trying to talk to them about price and beating the crap about them. Let's get to know them and what it is that they want. If you do that, you don't get objections. That's a very controversial.
No, it's true.
They can send me all their hate mail about that, but that is, in my experience, that's a fact.
The fastest listing presentation that I've ever been on was less than 5 minutes. And he signed it right away. Because I did the pre-qualification though beforehand on the phone. And he knew that my purpose for coming was to sign the agreement if I could answer all of his questions. I mean, he was also a driver too, right? So he had already made the decision, I think, on that call before having me out, and his intention was to sign, but 5 minutes.
Know who your client is. And speaking of the pre-qual, it's a pre-qualification, not a disqualification. So when I'm asking those pre-qual questions, what I'm really trying to do is gain information so that I can help them. I'm not asking the questions so that I know I'm deciding if I'm going to go or not. If somebody wants me to come out and talk about listing their property, I'm going to talk to them about listing their property. I had a coaching client just yesterday said, well, I decided not to go.
Whoa.
I said, why? He said, well, he wanted more than what it was worth. And I said, okay, have you seen the house? Have you seen the house? Well, no, but it was an expired. This guy's in the States. And I said, okay, so let me get this right. He wanted to sell his house. He's inviting you to his house to talk about listing it. Now you've decided not to go because he priced it higher than what you think the first time. And he's like, yeah. I said, well, your job was to go out there and talk to them about your perspective on why it should be priced a different way and how that's going to benefit him. And he's like, really?
He got in his own
I
way.
said,
Aw.
yeah, but you know what, Jenny, you're a broker. I'm sure you see that all the time too. They get in their own way.
Mhm.
They really do. And it's we're in the people business. We've got to talk to people. Again, talk to people.
Talking about the people business, referrals is such a great way to get business.
Mhm.
And I'm teaching some of my agents where they don't have immediate, like they don't have like A leads at the moment, but they have a great circle of friends. But they don't want to be pushy. They don't want to make them feel like they have to give them business.
Mhm.
So how do they
Mhm.
softly or passively let their kind of circle of friends know that they're looking for some business? Or should it just be very obvious and open?
Well, I think that having a good database today is more important than it's ever been, ever. And we could go into all the reasons for that. I think a big part of it is what we learned during COVID, first of all, is that's who you could really depend on, right? Is that if the expireds and the for sale by owners go away and things change, the people that you know, that's where the businesses should come from. Uh, Jenny, the problem that a lot of agents have is they think they're pandering to their friends and family and that they are looking desperate. So the way that I coach it is that working your database is a long-term forever project where we are putting ourselves in a position that if and when they ever want to buy or sell real estate, that we're the person that they think of, that our name is really synonymous with real estate. So if I'm working my database, I can't have the expectation that every single person, when I call them, is going to want to buy or sell real estate because it's not going to happen. Statistically, about 7% of people are moving all the time, right? So 7% of your database is probably going to turn over every year, roughly. And then another probably 3 or 4% knows someone or would be willing to give you a referral. So what we have to do is we have to hold ourselves out and be the agent that they would want to hire.
Okay.
So become that agent. And you do that a lot of different ways. I will call and talk about property to my people and just say, hey, I'm calling you today because I've ran into this great property. It's going to make a great investment or it's a great family home, whatever the scenario is. Who do you know? Keep your eyes open because this is going to be a great property.
Mhm.
And they'll say, okay, great, Cyndey. Now, have I overtly said, do you have a referral for me? I no, but if I'm making these deposits with them over and over and over again and showing that I'm this professional real estate agent, they're going to remember me.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, I also think that we have to do a lot of free stuff in our industry to get people to remember anything from doing CMAs for people or giving referrals out on roofing or plumbers or we have to be that real estate resource. I think we have to do a lot of things on social media to constantly remind them that we're in the business and make those bring value to those posts also, whether it's on the home buying or home selling. Uh, my job is to be the agent that they want to hire. Now, can I talk about past clients for just a second? Because I think
Yes.
this is also an important part of it too.
Yeah.
The expectation, when I first got in the business, I remember the trainer, her name was Fleetwood, which is such a great name. Fleetwood said to me, you do a great job and they're going to send you referrals. I think that's not true anymore.
Mm.
Just because you do a great job does not mean they're going to send you a referral. They expect that you're going to do a great job. And our customer service should be over the top. Every single client that you work with should be saying to you're amazing. You're the best agent we've ever worked with. That's our goal, right? So we start there, but how you get the referrals of the repeat business is what you do when there's no check involved.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if I am, selling them a home and I never talk to them again, what is that saying to them? That's saying that I only cared about them when I was earning a check. So what you have to do is continue that relationship. Every day I'll call a past client. I called one this morning and just said, hey, just checking in on you. How's everything going? I know that you guys, I just sold them a home like 3 months ago. How's the move? They were remodeling. Great. What are we going to do with the next property? How's it going? And I will continue that every 90 days. I'm going to be calling that person. And sometimes, Jenny, I'm not even talking real estate. Sometimes I'm like, did the kids get in school?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's going to be, hey, I've got this investment property, but it's important that we show an interest in them after the transaction and continue with that. Because if you continue with that, they will send you repeat and referral. If you don't, there's somebody else's new client.
So happy you brought that up, Cyndey.
Well, you know what? I was early in my career, I was terrible at this because I would be done with the transaction and I would be like, oh my gosh, I hope I never, I know we've all felt like this. I hope I never have to talk to that client again. I was like that on every transaction, but I learned over time that these are such important relationships for us to have. And if you don't have that great past client business, it really is a reflection of what you're doing in your business. Those past clients, they should be your biggest cheerleaders out there saying, she's awesome or he's awesome. And if that's not happening.
So speaking about referrals again, then going back to maybe even past clients who are referring a new person to you for either listing or purchasing a property, how do you recommend agents thank or compensate the referral source? So,
boy, that is such an interesting question. And you'll have some agents that will say, oh, that's against the law. You can't compensate them. Well, I can't give them a check. But if I get a referral, I'm going to send them a gift card for a nice dinner or something along those lines. And not even if I don't even have to close the referral. If you send me a referral, I'm going to send you $100 gift certificate to a restaurant because I want those referrals to come all the time. Don't wait for the deal to close. Just go ahead and send it now. And if it's a big one, and which I've had, I will send a very nice gift.
Yes.
Very, very nice.
Interesting that you said that though, like the positive reinforcement, you're positively reinforcing the behavior right after it happens rather than waiting for that gratification of like, okay, the closing, and by the way, here's your gift card. That's interesting. And it makes sense actually.
I think too that we have to do a good job of recognizing the businesses that some of our clients in our database are also in. And we should be sending referrals out to other people. If I've got, a CPA that sends me business, I need to be sending that accountant business as well, or that attorney. So it's got to be reciprocal, and because it is the foundation of the business. And I believe that these relationships are more important today than they ever have been. That's what we learned through COVID, and even the pickup rate when you're calling people is down today. And who's more likely to answer your phone but somebody that you know? So it's critical.
And you work with so many top producers. What's that benchmark you see when a solo agent is starting to look at expanding their team and adding to their team? So is there a benchmark in gross dollar volume, in number of transactions, in I'm sure there's, they're looking for work-life balance. At what point do you see that trigger point? And what's your next advice on that?
That's another great question. So I've seen over the years that there are some agents that will, get into the business and go, I'm going to build a team. And they've only sold 5 houses themselves. Right. Or they'll get 4 or 5 agents, 3 or 4 agents together that have all barely sold any property and think that we're going to put our numbers together and we're going to be a team. I think that's a really poor plan. Now, I just went back into production this past year in January, and I started a team right away. But I've got lots of experience at doing this. And I mean, our first year, we're going to do over 60 deals our very first year with a really small team. Now, I can do that because I know exactly what to do. But if it's an agent that's coming up the ranks, there's different kind of plateaus that agents go through. And the first plateau is just them, getting in the business, learning how to do deals, learning how to go out and create the business, whether it's through traditional prospecting or they've got business coming in on a consistent basis. Once an agent reaches, and again, this depends on price point too. If your price point's very high, so if someone is doing, say, 20 deals a year, they can probably start thinking, all right, how do I scale this? If they're in a lower price point, it might be bigger. It might be 35 deals a year because there's a financial part of this as well. Before you scale, you need to have a very healthy business, in other words. So it starts with you hire your first assistant or a transaction coordinator, virtual, or maybe you have somebody that's in-house. The next step would be hiring a buyer's agent or a team member that's going to come alongside of you. When you start to bring on team members, you have to have a value proposition of why is this person coming to work with me? What can I offer them that's going to get them to come to work with me? For an agent to scale successfully, they have to be able to delegate and give away some of their day-to-day things that they do. So an agent that's intimately involved in every bit of their transactions, it's going to be harder for them to scale versus someone that can delegate effectively and let their TC or their assistant do their job. I don't know if that answered your question, but there's definitely different plateaus.
And why do you often see teams not working out? Why do they break up so quickly?
Another great question. I think that some agents are not very good team leaders. Yeah. I think that's the number one reason is they probably shouldn't have built a team in the first place. They get frustrated with the fact that their team agents aren't doing what they wanted them to do. And that's usually a matter of poor training of those agents. So the leader isn't offering anything to help the agents grow. And so that becomes an issue. Or let's say they are offering it and the agents aren't taking to it. They're still not doing it. The agent gets frustrated with these agents that are on their team. That's the number one reason.
That makes a lot of sense, Cyndey. We have one more question for you before we go into the rapid fire, because we know you have other appointments as well. For those agents that are listening to this podcast and getting high value out of what you're sharing with them so generously, what offerings are available to any agent who wants to be coached by you?
Well, they can call me, of course. You can reach me at 501-837-6199, and we can talk about coaching. I also am a great sounding board for anyone that's even thinking about getting in coaching. Call me. We can discuss what the different steps are. Those that are in my coaching schedule, they're not the ones that are on Facebook right now talking about how slow it is. They're the ones that are saying, oh my gosh, I'm having my best year ever. So if you want to learn how to have your best year ever, invest in yourself. So whether it's with me or with another one of our coaches, call me and let's talk about it.
Okay, Cyndey. 5 rapid fire questions. Ready to go?
I am.
What's your all-time favorite book on real estate or personal development?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Probably my favorite book on personal development is probably 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I know that is probably the most boring book ever for personal development. But it puts into perspective, if you guys remember in that book, it has the quadrants. and talks about, this is urgent and important. When I read that opened up a whole other way of looking at my business and how I was responding to things on a daily basis. So for personal development, I think that is an excellent, excellent book if you really want to get good at the time management. The other one is a little book. It's called Versatile Selling, and it's on the personality styles. I love that book, and it's a little green book. You can get it on Amazon for $20. It'll change everything for you.
That was the first book you had me read. I still have it. And I've given it to my team members to read. It's the best one. Best one.
It's such a great book because it teaches you how to connect with people on a different level. If you saw my selling style a few years ago compared to what it is now, that book revolutionized how I actually sell, because it's more about the people and it's not so much about just getting it done. It's about really making that connection, and that's what separates good agents from great agents.
Next question. What's the first thing you do to kickstart your day?
Oh gosh, another great question. I'm a driver, so I don't need a lot of kickstarting. I get up, I have a schedule, I wake up, I get dressed. I'm one of those people that gets dressed and does the makeup and does everything very first thing before you even see me walk out of my bedroom.
How southern of you.
That is very southern of me. I'm trying to get more relaxed with that, but that's just how I've always been. But I sit down at my desk at the same time every day, usually between it's about 7:30 to 8. I see what my day holds, and I take a deep breath and I just go for it. I work better with a tight schedule versus not having one, so it's easy for me.
Okay, next one. What's your go-to motivational quote or word that keeps you inspired?
This will give you a little peek into my personality. I was skiing a few years ago, and we were in like the restaurant, and behind there was a sign behind there that said "No sniveling," and so we had that sign made, and that hung in my office for about 15 years. So I always think about that, no sniveling, because this isn't that serious. This is just real estate. So all the complaining and the moaning and it's just do your job, put a smile on your face and be grateful. No sniveling at all.
Like it.
Small stuff.
I like it.
That's right, don't sweat the small stuff.
3 words to describe yourself.
Tenacious, persistent, unfiltered. I've said this to you before. That's the unfiltered part is my best characteristic and my worst characteristic that I have, because I will tell it like it is, but sometimes I tell it like it is and I don't realize the response that I'm going to get back from telling it like it is. So when I'm coaching people or even working with clients, I tell them up front, like, here's how I am. I will always be straight with you. And that's what you expect from me. You should expect that from me. And so that works for me.
So somebody like myself and Toni, that would gain like our full respect,
That's why we did very well together, Cyndey.
Authoritative style. But with somebody else who's not
high emotional expressive,
right?
Maybe.
Do you often?
Amiable. Amiable. You probably have problems with amiable.
Let me give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
I'm working with a great couple right now. He's a doctor and he is so analytical. He literally does cardio surgeries on infants. This guy is super, super analytical. And she is very expressive, amiable. She's a stay-at-home mom, and so, yeah, she's super emotional. So with him, I started explaining to him that I knew his process. I said, now I understand that you need a lot of information to make these decisions. And so as we're going through this, I need you to communicate with me what you need, because you don't have time to make for these decisions to take a month. You got to make fast decisions. So part of it, Jenny, is I'll just take the time to speak to them where they are, and let them know that, yes, I'm unfiltered, but I see you. With the expressives and the amiables, the same thing. Yes, I'm unfiltered, but I'm very sensitive to, like this lady, she's got 3 kids. She's really concerned about this whole move and how it's going to happen. And then the repairs came back and there were some little things. So I had to, in an unfiltered, just kind of calm her nerves and say, you are going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. Just know that I've got your back, So it's in the delivery. I think you can be super unfiltered. You just have to know who your audience is. That's why that book, Versatile Selling, is so important, because it really teaches you how to talk to different types of people.
Okay, pick up that book. Mm-hmm. And what's the best tool for an agent to adopt into their business today?
Okay, so depending on where you are, if you're in the States, for example, and there is access to programs like Vulcan 7 or RedX that you can get the data fast, like the expireds and the for sale by owners, a tool like that is so important. If you are or a great CRM, something that's going to help you get organized with all of your leads. Because if you are prospecting on a consistent basis, you're bringing in leads all the time. So a good CRM is important too. Best tool, great attitude. Wake up every day and be happy and be grateful and look at everything as an adventure. And so your mindset and your attitude is the best tool that you need overall.
Cyndey, I think that that's the perfect way for us to end off. You know that I've known you for a long time. I have the utmost respect for you and what you do.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming on the podcast today to share your value and wisdom with our audience.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. You guys are awesome. And have a great rest of your summer.
Thanks, Cyndey.
Thank you for
too.
sharing your knowledge and expertise.
Bye, ladies.